All right, and welcome to Washington Commanders Insider. I wanted to go ahead and go live a little bit closer to the Washington Commanders picking. Before we go ahead and start to talk about the NFL draft, I first want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, just like Jaden Daniels is going to be hitting many receivers for multiple touchdowns this upcoming season. And so in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. So make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. And just looking at just the draft results so far, starting with pick number one, we had Cam Ward go to the Tennessee Titans. And, initially I'm thinking that the Titans certainly needed a quarterback. I think it's going to be interesting to see what type of quarterback that Cam Ward becomes. Kind of makes me think a little bit of kind of the Anthony Richardson situation. Will he come in and be an immediate impact into the NFL? Will it be something that he's got to really kind of develop into a great quarterback? We'll see what happens there with the Tennessee Titans, but I definitely think that they certainly need a quarterback. Next up, Travis Hunter going over to the Jaguars. And so I think that that's going to be interesting. Travis Hunter, I wonder, is he going to be a guy that he's going to be a dual type of guy in the NFL? Will he be able to play wide receiver? Will he be able to play corner? I think that that's probably one of the bigger questions there. Abdul Carter makes it over to the New York Jets. We'll be talking about them a little bit here in a moment about how they just went in, jumped into the round again to get a quarterback. But, I was wondering, with the foot issues and the things that he had going on, would he slide a little bit more? But I think a good solid selection here to the Giants. Obviously, we got to deal with them twice a year. You got Will Campbell going to the Patriots there out of LSU, offensive tackle. Mason Graham, defensive tackle, going over to the Cleveland Browns. And then I like this draft selection a lot when you have Ashton Genty going over to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that is something that certainly fits Coach Carroll. And just pretty much I think that they want to run the football. And so I think that he'd probably be a great fit there. Then you got Tetorora McMillan. T-Mac, I think is what they call him there. So he went to the Panthers. Interesting to see how that works out going over with Bryce Young. So I think T-Mac, I think that'll be a pretty good selection there. You got Kelvin Banks Jr., Texas offensive tackle. Gets drafted here at number 9 to the Saints. You got Colston Loveland, Michigan tight end. Number 10, we had Mikael Williams, Georgia, going there to the San Francisco 49ers. I think that was a pretty good fit right there. Tyler Booker, Alabama, heading over to the Dallas Cowboys. Kind of makes a lot of sense there, trying to shore up probably that offensive line with what's going on with Dak Prescott and them trying to probably establish another running game, I should say. And then next up, Kenneth Grant, Michigan, defensive tackle, going to the Miami Dolphins. You got Tyler Warren out of Penn State, tight end, heading over to the Colts. I actually think that he might be a pretty good selection there for the Indianapolis Colts, man. I think that they're kind of looking for a playmaker. Maybe Tyler Warren will be that guy. You got Jalen Walker, Georgia linebacker, going to the Atlanta Falcons. Walter Nolan, Ole Miss, going over to the Arizona Cardinals. Remember, we talked about him a lot on the channel, and some of the draft buzz around him was maybe he might be one of the more established defensive tackles in the league if he really pans out. I think I was kind of looking at the other broadcast, and that had the game day crew that does the college games, and they were talking about the only issue is just what type of effort are you going to get on a day-to-day basis from him. But if you are able to get that type of kind of effort, you certainly have got a great player here with Walter Nolan. So I'm curious to see what type of player he becomes. Next up, you got Shamar Stewart, another player that we had talked about out of Texas A&M, and edge, man, terrific metrics, just a guy that can certainly be a disruptive player, just really never finished as far as the sacks and things like that. And so we'll see how that works with the Bengals. And keep in mind, with the Bengals, the whole thing with Trey Hendrickson, does he get traded on the NFL draft night? We'll see what happens here. Then we have Ibuka coming out of Ohio State, going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I thought that that was another terrific selection. I think that that fits well with what they have going on. Curious to see how that works with Baker Mayfield. You had Jahadi Barron going out to the Denver Broncos, cornerback. Solid there. Derek Harmon, I think that that was an interesting pick going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think a lot of people thought that the Steelers were going to pick a quarterback. Didn't happen. Marion Hampton, man, I was wishing that he was going to fall down to the Washington Commanders, but not quite. But I must say that that pick does make sense going over to the Chargers, because we know that Coach Harbaugh is a coach that likes to run the football. So I wonder if he gets the starting role initially next season. So that's going to be interesting. Next up, Matthew Golden. So this was huge. If you got a chance to watch the broadcast there, they were talking about how they wanted to get a wide receiver, and they got one in Matthew Golden. So solid pick there. We got Donovan Jackson, Ohio State offensive guard, very good guard, going to the Minnesota Vikings. You got Jackson Dart, the quarterback for the Giants. And so they traded back into the first round, got Jackson Dart. I guess that's the quarterback that they wanted here with the Giants. Next up, you got James Pierce Jr. A lot of buzz around him. I think that he had a solid NFL combine, goes to the Atlanta Falcons. Next up, you got Malachi Starks, just came off the board, going over to Georgia. So, or excuse me, out of Georgia, going to the Baltimore Ravens. So Malachi Starks, number 27, just came off the board to the Baltimore Ravens. I think that that was actually a great selection here. So we have the Detroit Lions, and then we have the Washington Commanders. And so we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. Still some players available that we did talk about here. I know, we still got Donovan Izaraku. I think that that's a player that has been really mocked to us a lot in some of these NFL drafts. We've talked about him as well as maybe being an edge that the Washington Commanders would like to go after. So we'll see if the Commanders go for that. Omarion Hampton, we already talked about him being off the board. Trying to think of some other players that we've been looking at here. Let's see. James Pierce Jr., that's another player. Another player that's out there, too, that I don't know if you call him sliding down the board right now, but Mike Green, right, led the nation in tackles. We talked about him. Pass rusher, fluid, has that ability to kind of get the spin move going, kind of a finesse rusher. Talked about, I think he has that wrestling background. I was very impressed with that. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a J.J. Watt, Khalil Mack type of player. Had 12 or 13 games where he had tackles for losses. Started off as a linebacker, so pretty versatile as a defender. He's still on the board. Let's see here. Another player that we took a look at as far as like just looking at some of these pre-drafts and things like that. Tyleik Williams, right? So defensive tackle, run stuffer, power, speed, creates negative plays. He's still out there. Derek Harmon did get drafted. We just talked about that, went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's see here. Trying to look and see what else we were looking at. Still got Nick Emenwara, right? He's still out there. South Carolina safety guy that we talked about. I think that the NFL Network was giving him the Doran James comparison. 4.38, has the range, athlete, definitely can play box, almost like kind of like a linebacker type. Reminds me a little bit of like a Cam Chancellor if you can get the best out of him. Remember, Coach Dan Quinn coached Cam Chancellor in Seattle in 2013, 2014. Malachi Starks just came off the board to the Baltimore Ravens. We talked about that. Reads plays quickly, good hitter, in run support, able to get through the trash, kind of makes plays that way. Good ball skills as well. So again, I think the Ravens definitely got one. And so let's see what happens though, because like I said, a lot of writers and a lot of people have kind of had these mock drafts and have us getting Donovan Izaraku. And so we'll see what happens there. The 2024 ACC Player of the Year had 16 and a half sacks, was second in the nation. Definitely shows speed, got the explosion. More of like a solid pass rusher, probably going to have to get a little bit better as far as coming up to defend the run, but great hands, good standing rusher, wide technique. I think he can be multi-versatile, maybe kind of in the NFL. We'll see what happens there. I think you can use him in many different ways. And so, again, this is a player that I think has been really linked to the Washington Commanders a lot. And so, just kind of going back through it, I think it's interesting that we've only had, well, yeah, it's like two or three wide receivers that have gone thus far, two wide receivers that have gone thus far in the NFL draft. I wonder if the Washington Commanders might be considering that. It's something that we've talked about too as well. So we'll see what happens, man. We got the Detroit Lions. They're on the clock waiting for the Washington Commanders to step up here. I just think that one of the things that Adam Peters was talking about in his like pre-draft press conference is that the Washington Commanders are in a good spot. I think that we've gone out, we've done some great things as far as free agency. You got some good things in place right now. And I just think that, look, the Washington Commanders, maybe at this point in the draft, I think they can take a chance on a player that he could be a starter on defense, maybe could be a rotational piece. I don't know if he has to be an every down player. I think that you're into that type of position. I don't think you necessarily have to get an every down player right now. If you're looking defense, if we're looking for the offense, it depends, because I think that if you do get a running back, I think you're looking for somebody that can be an every down type of back right now. If you go with the wide receiver, that's again another position where I think the Washington Commanders do have a little leeway to where they can get a player and maybe he could be a guy that has some packages. Maybe, you throw him out there in some rotational situations, not necessarily a player that needs to be out there every down. So we'll see what happens. And so we got the 28th pick in the draft, and looks like the Lions have selected Tyleik Williams. Okay. So we just talked about Tyleik Williams and just talked about him and maybe possibly being a good fit, but it looks like that the Detroit Lions took him. So I liked a lot of stuff about him. I thought he would be a first-round pick, and so now it comes down to what the Washington Commanders are going to do here. So curious to see if they're going to go defense or offense. But, yeah, I think that Tyleik Williams, man, he was solid pick, man. Solid pick. Yeah. Man, recorded 100 tackles, 18 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks over the past 2 seasons. Man, just outstanding production right there. Locates the ball, sheds blocks in time to make the play, gets to the backfield. Yeah, he looks like he's going to be a solid disruptor, man, at the next level. So, yeah, really curious to see what he's going to look like. All right, guys. And so thanks for joining us here. Make sure that you go ahead and you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. Again, going live as we get ready for the Washington Commanders pick. Counting it down, we're at 4:21 left. This is the first round of the NFL draft. Let's see what happens here. See if Adam Peters makes a move. Coming up on 4 minutes to go. Waiting on the Washington Commanders to make a selection here. Looks like we're going to a commercial break. Yeah. Man, they keep looking over at Shanoir Sanders, man. I thought he was going to get drafted by the New York Giants. I really did. When they moved back into the first round, I thought that they were going to take him. Interesting that they take Jackson Dart, you know what I mean? But we'll see. I think he can definitely be a solid quarterback for somebody. So anyway, let me know what you guys are thinking. Again, waiting on the Washington Commanders to pick. Looks like we're into a bit of a commercial break right now. So see what happens. Washington Commanders. Now, another thing that they could do, well, we already talked about it with Emin Ward. He could possibly go there. Trying to go back through and see another wide receiver that could go maybe in the first round. The Washington Commanders might go with. Yeah. I mean, my gut says, man, it's either going to be Donovan Izaraku or it's going to be like a Mike Green at the edge, but we'll see. Um, or I, I mean, could it be Femi out of UCLA? I think he was another guy that they took a look at in the pro day. Big time motor, can be versatile, speed off the ball, good edge, sheds the blocks. Um, has to get a plan, a little bit more of a plan, but definitely has the athleticism. So see what happens. Had a very good week at the Senior Bowl. One of the notes I was seeing here. So still waiting on the Washington Commanders, man, to make this pick. Pick number 29. A few golden. Yeah. Yeah, I think Jordan Love, those guys are definitely going to love Matthew Golden. I think he's going to make some big time plays there. I think Omarion Hampton landed in a good spot too. All right, man, we're on the clock. We're waiting. Says that according to ESPN, best fit would be Mike Green. Said that. Then cornerback is Will Johnson. Yeah, Will Johnson, Michigan Wolverines. Uh, Two INTs, four in 2023, three in 2022. Okay. All right, let's see. Mel Kiper says Will Johnson. They're zooming in on Mike Green. Led the nation in sacks. All right, here comes the commissioner. Pick for the Washington Commanders. Wow. Josh Connerly Jr. Tackle. Oregon. Wow. Okay. All right. So, I mean, look, you got a player that is certainly going to be able to fit the timeline with the Washington Commanders and somebody I think kind of works with what they're building with Jaden Daniels. And so, hey, and Adam Peters, we trust 6'4, 311. Okay. Say he's pretty good at getting to the second level with his blocks, great pass protection. Good feet. Okay. All right, interesting pick right there for the Washington Commanders. I think everybody thought that they would probably go, with maybe a wide receiver, perhaps somebody off of the edge. But again, going with John Connerly Jr., offensive tackle out of Oregon. According to Mel Kiper, he says that maybe another year there, he would have been a top 5 draft pick. Okay. Had the fastest 10-yard split with 1.71 for an offensive lineman at the combine. Quickness shows on tape. His arms are on the shorter side, but pops out of his stance and pushes out to meet speed rushers. Steals the edge, works up to the second level, cuts off backside defenders on zone runs. He's strong enough to move defenders off the ball, and he's an effective combination blocker. All right, man. So, hey, I love it. Washington Commanders, you got it. Josh Conley Jr. selected at pick 29. And so, again, I think that it kind of fits the timeline with what the Washington Commanders are wanting to really build with Jaden Daniels. I think you got a player that will be around, for the duration there of his career, somebody that can kind of grow with him. And again, I think it adds to an offensive line that to me was pretty dominant. I think at times last season, and I think that as this team continues to get even more nastier in the trenches, hopefully we're able to dominate. I think defenses a lot like what we did in the early part of the year, especially running the football. And so, hopefully that maybe gives us a little bit more added punch to that game, because I think that really the Washington Commanders, as great as they were passing the football, terrific running the football. And so I think if that's something that it opens that up, and then also too, you're talking about protecting Jaden Daniels, all about it. Can't wait to see what Adam Peters and the Washington Commanders are going to do in round 2. And so just wanted to hop on here, go over this round 1 selection. Make sure that you press that like, you press that subscribe, you join the Washington Commanders Insider page as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. All right, guys, I will see you guys on the next one. And as we always say, go Commanders. I will see you on the next one. All right, peace.